Men do not have the highest standards for women. Men will settle for less than they deserve. It is much better to be alone than to be in bad company.
As a 30-year-old who has not received any romantic attention from women in years, at what point is it reasonable to give up?
It's not about chasing the thing until you find it. It's not needing it, but being open to it when it presents itself to you. Every single no is bringing you closer to a yes.
Blaming an entire gender for the behavior of a few is only adding to the problem.
And it's the euphoria, it's the lust, it's the temptation, it's the desire that clouds your judgment.
All those alpha male coaches were right. If you're vulnerable, they'll see it as weakness and then find someone who's stronger than you. That's all bullshit.
We should all hate women. I'm on the men's side. I want them to not like women because I don't have a good man. It's probably not news to you that the relationships between the sexes in the modern world are less than desirable. My name is Kait and Michelle, and I'm on a mission to bridge the gap between men and women, even if it ends in disagreement, to start to cultivate understanding. And today I'm going to be answering some of my audience's questions with my husband to get the male perspective on some of these issues. By the end of this video, my goal is that men and women will have a deeper understanding of how to navigate the modern world dating landscape, relationships, and marriage, and also respect the differences between how we perceive, respond, and move through some of the difficulties in not only finding a romantic partner, but maintaining the relationship. Without further ado, let's get into it.
All right. I'm 50, have kids, and post-divorce. The biggest question I have is, what's the point? What do I get out of a relationship? The vast majority of women I meet these days, I call gimme monsters. Gimme free food and stuff, gimme attention, gimme the feels, but what do I get? I can say what I want, respect, a gal who's got my back, emotional support, and intimacy, but it's not like these things are on the table these days.
I think the most difficult thing from a personal responsibility perspective is to make sure you're paying attention to what it is you're paying attention to. A lot of men, and this is not a slight at men whatsoever, but a lot of them fall in love with the idea of what a woman could be, and they do not look at reality as it is. And you think that if you give her more, you sacrifice more, you provide more for her, that eventually she will become the version of her that you want her to be. And so this comes down to, what is in it for you? You get to have what you want. I think the difficulty I have and frustrations that I experience watching some of these things play out is that men do not have the highest standards for women, right? Women have all of these standards, all of the I want a man who, I deserve a man who, and men will settle for less than they deserve because they want attention or they miss the companionship or they're lonely. And unfortunately, if you look at the need as a void that needs to be filled as quick as possible, you're likely going to take the first person that gives you a semblance of attention, shows you some desire, right? And it might be a means to an end that does not respect or honor you with who you are, with what you have to offer that's not maybe material or what you do or what you could provide, right? Because women being hypergamous will latch onto that, even if their emotions for you are not where you would want them to be. And so I think it's being more discerning about what you entertain and what you don't, having very strong boundaries, being clear about who you are, what you want, what you're looking for, what you will and will not tolerate from the very beginning. But you have to recognize that it is much better to be alone than to be in bad company. And that's a level of self-respect that you have to have, because there are women who make relationships way better. They amplify, right? Women are not somebody who's going to build something for you. They are going to, if they are naturally inclined to their own feminine nature, they're going to multiply the fruits of what you give them. They're going to nurture the things that you give them. They're going to be supportive in your pursuit of achieving or provisional nature within you. They are going to be a rock. They are going to be the support that you need on a hard day. If you have a woman who does not value those things, you cannot force her to value something that she doesn't. And again, a lot of men will project what it is that they want in a woman onto that woman in front of them instead of looking at her for what she actually is. You admire and desire who it is you think she could be. What do you think?
I would agree with all of that. I think there's also truth to, going back to the gimmies. Mm-hmm. If that's, your brain is a sentry that's always looking for confirmation of what you believe to be true. And so if you believe that all women or all men, goes both ways, are this thing, guess what you're going to continuously find? Mm-hmm. You can't see the opportunities that you're closed off to. So I just, for what it's worth, I think that you have to be open and give yourself permission to finding the caliber of person that you desire, while also being that caliber of person yourself. And it often will find you when you're not looking for it at all.
Yeah.
As a 30-year-old who has not received any romantic attention from women in years, at what point is it reasonable to give up?
God, I mean, I'm going to tell you that there's never a time in which you close your heart off to the opportunity and the power of love. And I understand your skepticism and or criticisms for me. At the same time, though, you have to look at it as something that you want, and it's continuing to become the version of you that you're proud of. You're 30 years old. I mean, you are still young, grasshopper. And so trying to write your life sentence at the age of 30 is only going to prevent you from experiencing the opportunities that may come as you continue to grow through life, because you will. Time passes, you choose what to do with it. But as far as at what point do you give up, I would say never. I don't think you ever close your heart off. I think that that is one way to be self-protective from pain, right? A lot of people avoid relationships not because they don't want them, but because they're afraid of the pain that might come with pursuing them. And any relationship is a risk. Any single time, any relationship could be a friendship, could be a romantic partner. There's always a risk because you do not know the texture of that person's mind, right? You can't expect perfection from any human because you also can't give that, right? And you should never expect the things that you can't give to somebody. But at the same time, using discernment around, is this person worth investing my time into? Is this person worth pursuing? Is this person worth the burden that they will be in your life? And it's not about chasing the thing until you find it. It's not needing it, but being open to it when it presents itself to you. So I don't know what you have to say about that, but I think that there's never a time where you completely shut off the opportunities that may come to you.
Yeah, and without context on this person, the only bit of perception I would offer here is taken straight out of Robert Glover's book. You said that you've received no romantic interest from women in years. Maybe you're waiting for it. And I would encourage you, if you haven't already, maybe you've done this. If so, tell me to fuck off. Make your goal to get as many no's as possible. Like approach. Right? Rack up as many no's as you can. And I promise you, if you are able to have the courage to do that, what might feel really audacious in the moment, you'll learn a lot about yourself. You'll gain some skills from those conversations. You'll get used to what you perceive as rejection, and it won't be as debilitating or filled with a bunch of fear maybe that you have right now. Because what I read here is, I have received no romantic interest from women, but are you putting yourself out there? Are you approaching? Are you trying? Right? Like, no isn't a death sentence. It's just a redirect. You know, it's practice, it's reps. Might be a numbers game for you to gain some confidence in approaching people. Do you have any tips for a guy between the ages of 40 and 55? Good places to meet women when he's taken some time from the dating scene.
I would give this advice to a man regardless of what age you are. I do think it is important to consider, where would you want your future spouse to be in their free time, right? Is it bars and clubs? Probably not. Do you think that you're going to find a long-term partner in those spaces? Probably not. Is it the internet? Okay, if you choose to use the internet, what are you filtering for, right? What are you looking at? What types of women are you engaging with on those platforms, right? Because the bait you use determines the type of fish you catch, right? So where do you put yourself? Put yourself in environments where a hobby would be interesting to you or attractive to you. Maybe it's, some other things that you would be comfortable, appreciative, and even admire your partner partaking in those activities. And I know men hate when I use the term partner, but wife, spouse, girlfriend, I don't know which, I'd rather just say partner than all of those different things. I'm not trying to be insulting here. But yeah, it's really taking the time to consider. And also, when it comes to long-term relationships and maintaining a bond, you do want hobbies that you guys enjoy doing together. And so if you have hobbies or interests and you start to pursue them because you've taken the time to grow and understand yourself and evolve and pursue different things potentially, you might meet somebody who's putting yourself into those environments as you continue to grow into whoever it is you're becoming, right? It's safe to say that there are certain places you don't look, right? But being more open-minded around areas you could look, right? It's one of those things that's character building, if nothing else. But you realize that like every single no is bringing you closer to a yes. And so it's not allowing your insecurities or your fears or the overthinking of who's going to be here, what do I say, how do I approach, and just allowing things to unfold. Because if you go to an environment that you are interested in, right? Best case scenario is you meet somebody else. Worst case scenario is you did something you enjoy doing. And so doing it from an internal place of this is good for me. And as a byproduct of doing something good for me, I may indeed meet and or connect with somebody who's also interested in the same thing. Bonus, not the mission. That's what I would say.
Second part of that question. At what point do men need to throw in the towel and become a passport bro or something to that effect?
I know a lot of men think that that is the way to go. And I understand, because women in the West, specifically in the United States, who have been brainwashed by the idolization of feminism are very difficult people, right? Very difficult to build strong relationship polarity and depth of connection with. Okay. You can't like lead somebody who refuses to follow you, right? It's a headache. At the same time, though, I'm somebody who believes that there are a lot of things that can change the dynamics of these things. And here's where I wish men who might be a little bit bitter would provide themselves with perspectives around grace. There are lots of people in this country, men and women, who have been through shortcomings, hardships, made the wrong choices, had to learn from those the hard way, pay the consequences of their life decisions, and evolve through the pain of those struggles. Women are no different from that. And so while you may want to judge, criticize, shame, and or reject women with a certain proclivity, again, you're allowed to have your own standards, and I will always advocate for that. But if you are judging them based on who they were before you met them and not looking at the evolution of a person who brought them to be who they are today, assuming that there's a differential there, which there may not be, right? I think that we can all agree with that. And most women will use that as far as like, I've had to learn, but really they've just outgrown their own beauty, which again, no judgment. We all will. But I think it's one of those things where you can choose to stay in the arena and work on yourself and grow and evolve and become the type of man that would attract the caliber of woman that you're looking for and be patient in your pursuit of that female. Or you can just go somewhere else that has different cultures, different values, different types of women who have not been necessarily consumed by the propaganda around feminism, and maybe find a partner there. It's about what you want and what you're willing to do to find it, I think. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, blaming an entire gender for the behavior of a few is only adding to the problem. And I would also say that the loudest voices in the room are not the majority. I mean, there's people out there that very likely, many people out there that very likely have the values and traits that you're looking for, but they're probably not going to be masquerading on social media. They're probably not going to have large platforms that they're with a microphone. They're probably not going to be, the loudest voice in the room. It's probably going to be a silent population of people who are invested in their own growth, aren't caught up in what society deems popular or trendy. They're probably, somewhere where you're not looking. It's just not a solution. So inward is always the way, in my opinion. Become the person you're trying to attract, and it will find you. I'm 37, been in a 10-year relationship that ended in betrayal. I want to be in a loving, committed relationship where loyalty, honesty, and genuine acceptance and love for another as they are the key factors. I'm having trouble trusting new people that I meet and having trouble feeling safe to be vulnerable. I'm afraid they will leave once I become vulnerable and start to trust.
This is a personal one. And I laugh because I'm trying to deal with my emotions that come up with this type of question. Betrayal is one of the deepest wounds that you will ever experience. The pain that comes with that and the adaptations that happen as self-preservation and or protection for you in the future are very difficult to let go of. And this kind of goes back to something I said earlier in this episode, but every single relationship comes with its own level of risk. It will. If you want that type of relationship, there is going to be a willingness to put yourself in a vulnerable position with the right person, right? And so this is where it comes down to discerning who it is that you trust enough to take risk for. It's not about never. I know that there's probably a part of you that is now hypervigilant, feels unsafe, wants reassurance, needs to know that they are who they say they are, needs to know that they're never going to weaponize your vulnerabilities, needs to know that they're going to be loyal, needs to know that they would never betray you. I understand that. The most important piece around this for you is that you work through that betrayal wound, because what will happen, and it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility, right? Because if you do not, the person that you may want to spend the rest of your life with, the right person who would be all of those things from you, you will push away from you because you will suffocate somebody, and or you will ask them to pay the price of a wound that they did not create in you, right? And you don't want to do that. Half of a relationship is protecting people from the maladaptive parts of you, right? Because they don't deserve to experience that. Whether it's men in rage and anger and not understanding how to be angry without, reacting in a certain way that's hurtful. And for women and or other men, let's just, say that we have very similar emotional experiences, even if the manifestation of those things is different. It's learning not to put the need to have your wounds fixed by your partner, because that is individual work. It is your responsibility. Your partners are there to support you, but they're not there to change you. What happened in your last relationship? It might be saying, I experienced some betrayal I couldn't move through. That's vulnerable, right? And you see how they respond to it. You don't have to tell them the whole story, right? Or maybe it's sharing a fear, or maybe it's sharing a desire. All of that to say, it's very important for you to meet yourself where you are and to work through through resolving those issues, because whether or not you think you're healed, that stuff is going to come up. Everybody's wounds come up. It is normal. It is a part of being human and walking through the human experience, but you cannot let that prevent you from being able to experience what you want. And it will stand in the way if you refuse to confront it. That's the work that you have to do.
I have a lot of compassion for this man. If you've been burned before, the worst thing you can do is let that keep you from taking an opportunity that could bring you the love that you desire, and then let that same thing burn you twice. Speaking as somebody who's had my vulnerabilities taken like an arrow, loaded into a quiver, and fired back at me later on to hurt me, I totally get it. And I agree with everything that she said. I think the pacing with the vulnerability is very important. Vulnerability is a prerequisite to intimacy, but you don't want to dump everything just to try in a desperate attempt to find that connection. You want to be very discerning with what you divulge, what you share. And then, as she said, gauge reaction. If they meet these things with love and not criticism or, kind of retort that makes you feel more broken than you already feel, probably a red flag, especially if it's repeated. Being met in these moments with love is the mark of a woman who's integrated and can be nurturing in those moments, and they are out there. But I'm living proof that, after having vulnerabilities weaponized, and then thinking, oh, well, all those alpha male coaches were right. If you're vulnerable, they'll see it as weakness and then find someone who's stronger than you. That's all bullshit. The right person will see it as a strength, not a weakness. And obviously you remaining composed and just owning who you are and how you feel in those moments is very important long term. In any relationship, you need that. Don't be it's out there. I get the fear, but you can find it, I promise you. All right, so this man's really trying to be intentional instead of just falling for someone based on the usual like looks and euphoric chemicals early in a relationship. He's trying to be discerning. So the question is how to test or find out from a woman when she matches or complements your values and beliefs in life, like specific questions maybe that you can think of.
I think the most important thing that you can do, number one, conversation is a part of connection, right? So they are going to talk to you about what they want and how they feel. And if you ask them questions around, what are the roles that you want to play in a relationship? We had that question early on. You can ask them specific things about what they value. What is meaningful to them in a relationship? Do they know what their attachment style is? Do they know in which ways do they receive and feel love? Which ways do they like to give love, right? And you might see they're making all these statements about how they perceive themselves to be, right? That's all the information that you have. This is what they say. This is what they perceive to be true about who they are. Then you have to watch, right? You have to pay attention to how they behave. Right? If they say they're loyal, does their behavior in your presence and your absence reflect that level of loyalty? Right? Can they be transparent with you? Right? Do they set boundaries with people? Do they respect themselves? One of the best things that you can do to gauge a woman in her level of self-respect is how she presents herself. Right? There are beautiful women, like tens, who still live modestly. And I think that says a lot about the quality of who that is. And so easy screening is like, what are you attracted to in this woman? Why are you talking to her? Right? Ask yourself that question first and foremost. Are you looking for values or are you looking for vanity? But then pay attention to, does she live in congruence with her statement? Right? Can she receive gracefully, not ask or demand with entitlement? Right? Is she grateful for the things that you do? Does she thank you for the efforts that you put in? Does she acknowledge that you're investing time? Right? Even if it's just a phone call, does she thank you for your time? I don't know if you have anything from the male perspective that you could add to that, but I think it's very important to, yes, ask questions that you're interested in knowing, receive her answers assuming the best, and be patient enough to watch how her behavior reflects or does not reflect those things. And do not convince yourself that you're not seeing what you're seeing. A couple things that I think are very important: don't sleep with them right away. Do not, as a man, I know that you might want to, but if you're looking at this person as a long-term potential partner, do not sleep with them right away. And it's the euphoria, it's the lust, it's the temptation, it's the desire that clouds your judgment. If you can have respectful dialogue and interactions, go do things together, right? See how they are in social settings, see how they are, how do they treat other people? Are they polite? Are they respectful, right? Observe them from a distance and then focus on communication. That's going to be one of the most important things that you can have in a long-term relationship.
Yeah, sick attracts sick. And I couldn't agree more. I think a barometer of your self-respect, both hers and yours, is the pace at which the sexualization of the relationship moves. Once you sexualize the relationship, the learning stops, right? So, and this is mostly for people who are, really struggling with that aspect of lust and restraint. That's a really good barometer for how much you respect the relationship and how much you want to find something more meaningful. How do single women find themselves so qualified to give relationship advice on the internet?
Okay, this is gonna be kind of a controversial take, but the first thing that I will say, as far as people that you should listen to. You need to be paying attention to people who have the thing that you want. And I mean exactly the thing that you want. Here's the thing that women don't talk about enough when it comes to women giving advice. Women, as far as how we compete with one another, is very different from how men compete with one another. Men will be direct, confrontational. They will get into conflict. They'll beat the shit out of each other. They'll shake hands and they'll move on. Okay, men are very, very direct. I'm pissed at you. I don't fucking like you. I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. Have a nice fucking day. Or don't. I don't care, right? Women, as I said earlier, they're kind of fickle creatures. Women do not want other women to have the things that they do not have. Women become very envious of women who are happy. This is why women inherently know women in happy marriages do not go on public platforms and talk about how happy their marriages are. Because women are not the types of people, types of creatures that are going to become super introspective and think about the work that they need to do to earn the type of partner that they want. Instead, they will say, I deserve it. And look, she has it. And I bet I can take it from her. Women compete that way, right? This is why, unfortunately, there are many, many, many stories of husbands cheating on their wives with their wives' best friends or their neighbors that they go to dinner with and whatever. Very, very common practice for women that's not talked about enough. And so if a woman is giving relationship advice and she is single, it's probably from a jaded perspective. She's going to tell the story of how she was betrayed or how all men cheat and you should never trust them and you don't get in bed with them fully and you keep your own stuff and you build your own empire and you don't share it with him so that you take his money, but you also have your money, right? Because you need to have security around yourself, right? And so that's a lot of the women giving advice to women, or how men are all avoidant and avoidants are narcissistic. And so, I think it's very important to look at people who have the thing that you want. And I don't mean like a semblance of it. I mean actually exactly what you want. For example, there are people that will talk about being in a marriage and their marriage is happy, but they and their partner live separate lives. They've just learned how to split bills together and raise children together. I'm not going to listen to that because there's a depth of connection that I desire that that person doesn't have. And you also have to recognize that the things that you consume will change the way that you think. And it will change the way that you think, how you feel, how you perceive the world, and therefore how you interact with it, right? This is why when you look at the red pill space, right, all the men, the Andrew Tates of the world is the extreme example here, that kind of talk negatively about women. If you consume enough of that content, your perception of women is going to be negative inherently, without giving any of them as people, human beings, the opportunity to show you differently. From an alternative perspective, what we're seeing now is the mirror of that in the women's spaces, right? The women who say red pill is so toxic and all these men are awful, misogynists. We have misandrists on the other side that are promoted, supported. There's nobody saying anything about it. And women are becoming more and more jaded around the nature of men because they consume all of this content. Good women, strong values, want love, open-hearted, nurturing, are now being manipulated under these stories of women who've been burned, who tell women not to get into relationships, that all men are a certain way. And without any experience of that lived in their own life, they will believe that by default, right? And so it continues to drive this wedge. And so as for who you should take advice from, and I know this was kind of a, should you listen to single women or why women are doing it? They're doing it because it monetizes. They're doing it because it makes money. They're doing it because people do not listen to positive information. When it comes to marketing, okay, that's what social media is. People marketing themselves through storytelling or positioning or narratives, right? People aren't going to say, hey, there's a middle ground here with people. Yeah, there's some bad eggs on this side and bad eggs on that side. But, I have to keep hope that the majority of people are good. Here's how to approach people, or how do we resolve this problem, right? If you listen to commentators in this space, majority of them don't care about solving the problem. They don't. That's what frustrates me the most about this stuff. They care about amplifying the problem. They care about, well, you don't have it, so I don't think men should pursue women. Or Davis, right? It's like, oh, I'm not married. I don't have a family. I don't have connection. I don't have this thing in my life. And, we should all hate women. I'm on the men's side. I want them to not like women because I don't have a good man, right? And so they wouldn't pick me. I don't want them to pick them either. So I'm going to continue to reinforce this thing, right? I don't agree with that whatsoever. Again, polarizing this even further than it is only going to contribute to the problem that we're continuing to see.
Circling back to, what you see on social media, on the internet, and kind of alluding to the fact that you become what you habitually consume. I think as a man, as anybody, but focusing on men here, you really need to curate your social media consumption and otherwise to be oriented towards the man you want to become. And if you sit there and you're consuming video after video of women slamming men and men slamming women, that is going to be your psyche. That is going to be what you think. And I doubt that that's actually how you want to live. And so in addition to not taking advice from anybody who isn't where you want to be in life, I would also highly recommend that you curate your feed, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, otherwise, to be conducive to the type of person you're trying to become and the type of life you're trying to create here. And I highly doubt that reality has a bunch of adversarial men versus women slamming, man slamming type of stuff going on. That only keeps you stuck in the muck of dysfunction. I know it's difficult, but as a man, I think your internal environment, your psyche, and keeping that pure and consuming things that only add to you as a person, I think is very, very important and very well within your control.
And women with discernment will pay attention to these things, right? Women of virtue are going to pay attention to these things. They're going to look at the man who says that kind of communicates interest and go, what is he engaging with? I don't want to be with a man who's lusting over other women. I don't want to be with a man who is driven by his own temptations. I not want to be with a man who cannot practice restraint around those things. I don't feel safe with that. She's not going to reciprocate that because she already can see underneath the facade of what you might communicate to her. Your character, your actions, your behaviors, your habits do not align with that. So you cannot meet her where she is. She will immediately disconnect from that.
Yeah, if you're one of these guys on here claiming that you want a high value woman and who has all these traits, but you can't stop watching pornography for more than a couple days, you can't stop lusting over other women while you're in relationship, you can't expect to find somebody who's going to have the value that you say that you want. Because it's not just how you present, but how you live behind closed doors. That is what truly matters. That's what it comes down to. That's when your character is revealed. When you're not being evaluated, when no one's judging you, when you can get away with it, that is a true testament of your character, who you are when nobody's watching. And so just kind of a gut check for those of you watching who are sitting here saying you can't find a good woman, but you can't even stop jerking off to porn for more than a couple days. Let that be a reality check, not a judgment, not at all, but something you probably need to assess within yourself. What should fathers of young kids be aware of that their kids might be exposed to in this modern era of childhood development?
Well, I think young boys are completely overlooked in their development these days. One of the most important elements for young boys to engage with is rough and tumble play. You have schools that don't really get outside. You don't have gym classes. You don't really have recess. They are already taught to please women because the majority of people who are teachers are women. And then we have fatherless homes that contribute to all of those things. With all of that, if you have a single mom who's working multiple jobs and they have a caretaker who may or may not be paying attention, they're on screens. They're on screens consuming information. And what I think people neglect to understand is that your eyes are directly attached to your brain. What you consume influences what you think, what you normalize, what you are okay with, what you expect the world to be like, all of these different things. And so children at younger and younger and younger ages are being exposed to things that they do not need to be exposed to at that point in their lives developmentally. And so making sure that they have an environment that allows them to freely express, to feel, to communicate, to play, to engage, right? To be socialized. It's so, so important, especially if you have a male child, a boy, right? And I am going to kind of harp on that because I think we've done a lot for young girls and they get a lot of grace and a lot of attention and a lot of maybe a little bit too much pandering, but men need to be able to have their own spaces too. Developmentally, we are similar, but also different. And the way that we engage with them, the things that we teach them, right? Early on learning aggression and restraint, putting young boys into athletic arenas, allowing them to work in teams, allowing them to learn communication and roles, how to achieve a goal collaboratively, how to get angry and express that in an aggressive manner, while also understanding that there are boundaries around your aggression and where that can go and how to work through those things. Those are all things that I think men are not being taught. So they either repress it and it comes out sideways later in life, towards women, towards friends, towards themselves. They don't know how to handle that. They don't know how to feel through that. They do not know how to work through it. And so, in women, on the other hand, or society, demonizing men for their aggression is also inherently wrong. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to feel all of those things. What you do with that is more important. How you move through that, how you communicate that, how you take care of yourself, how do you let that out? How do you exercise that aggression in a productive manner? Because it is okay.
This next one's very well articulated, but very sad. What is your view on male suicide? The influence of toxic feminine usury of men being the silent worker drones until gone, broken, disposed of. How do we fix this? And isn't it okay to feel like you've done enough and you'd like to be gone now at rest? I'm a medical doctor. I'm okay, and yet I can empathize. I have these conversations with my patients. Here in Australia, there is now a voluntary assisted dying program, the limits of which are unknown. It's another huge, uncontrolled social experiment, not easy visas to navigate or ideas to parse.
My view on male suicide is that it is a problem we need to actually address, right? Because we sweep it under the rug, right? Women cry out in distress about how they need equal pay without doing the same jobs or the same work. And we fucking spend so much time and resources trying to pander to that need of entitlement. And we can't even see men as human beings. They are not here to be disposed of. I know people will make statements like men are disposable. No, they're human beings. They are amazing at what they can produce and what they can do and how they have evolved society, the things that they've built, the things that they're willing to do. All right, men are needed. So if you're a man watching this, I don't care if no other woman tells you this, you are needed. I need you. As far as the issues around that, the differences between men and women when it comes to suicide is women will typically do this as a cry for help. The follow through rate for women is abysmally lower than it is for men. Men do it when they do not see a way out. They've thought through their options and there's no way. And if you are somebody in that position, I need you to hold hope, faith, and patience to know that there is a way. You might not be able to see it right now. But as far as an assisted dying program, I think that that is incredibly sad. I do not get to speak on the free will that people have. And I will not sit here and guilt anybody who might have considered it, looked into it, or felt some type of way about it. I would encourage you not to lose faith in the fact that you are here for, right? You do have a purpose. It is not just to be at the knee of a woman and to please her or to do what society tells you to do or be who it is that people tell you to be. Men have the weight and the burden of carrying, internalizing, repressing, and posturing through their emotions because they're told that being vulnerable is a weakness, that it is emasculating as a man to feel things. And so they carry the weight of their stress, their problems, their spouses or their partner's problems, their children's problems, their financial problems, their own wounds and problems that they haven't ever had the space to work through or the comfort or compassion to be able to vocalize. I have a metric fuck ton of compassion for that. But men need to be able to do the things that their purpose is around, that their nature is around, without it being the only thing that their value comes from. And I think that as a society, we have lost sight of the man's value that is outside of what he can do. Men are not just utilities. Okay, they are humans, they have depth, they have beautiful minds, wonderful souls, different in expression, but the quality of it is incredible if you allow yourself to experience it. And every single man who's listening to this, watching this, if you have a son, a brother, a husband, a grandfather, whatever it might be, they need to know that they are needed, wanted, desired, adored, and that they matter. I think that there's too much of this conversation around men being disposable, that men get to this place where they feel like it doesn't matter, and it does matter, and you do matter. Yeah, that's heavy, but I think that there is a lot of things societally, culturally, that need to be done around this. Not because, again, I think it's difficult to even say this as a woman because it might be the fact that like there are certain many benefits that I have as a woman in the modern world that were built on the backs of men. I'm not ever going to deny that. But even if men were to stop doing that, they would still matter, right? Their life still matters to their family, to their friends, to their communities, to the people around them that love them. And even if you feel alone, I promise you, you have something to give, a gift to give, right? One of the best quotes that got me out of a hole is I have definitely been rock bottom at points in my life was to remind myself that I have a unique fingerprint to leave an imprint on the world that nobody else can leave but me, and you do too. What that is for you, I don't get to say. I don't know. But I do believe that every single person has a purpose, whether that's indirect contact with the world and environment around you or something much bigger than that. I think the only way that you know that is if you have the courage and the conviction to pursue it. And I hope that all of you can find that in yourself because I know that the world definitely needs gifts from men and they are overlooked because we've taught men to believe the only thing that you have to value in yourself and that we value in you is your utility. And I think that that is astronomically. And lastly, the most important thing that I think men could do is community. You need connection. Community members you can talk to. Can you seek counsel? Can you have mentorship? Can you get involved in things around you? Connection is so important, not just for women. I know that we always focus on women having communities and gossip circles and all this stupid stuff. Men don't do it that way. But if you can get involved in something, isolation only amplifies symptoms of depression. And I know that that's counterintuitive because when you feel really shitty about yourself or your life, all you want to do is be alone. And so I don't care if you have to force yourself. Again, at that point in your life, you might have to parent yourself and say, you're going to get up today, you're going to get dressed, and you're going to go outside. Right. But you have to be the one that looks out for you again, because you are here for a reason. And whatever that reason is, I encourage you to have the patience and the mental fortitude to find out.
What do you think is the root of the political gender gap? Is it literally about dating? No. Or is there something more that is making the younger generation so separated in their ideologies?
Okay, so this is going to come off like some type of conspiracy theory, but the one thing that my father taught me when I was in my teens was to follow the money. Right? Who is benefiting off of this? Right? So feminism, right, started as a fight for equal rights and opportunities. The first wave wasn't so sinister, and it evolved into this sense of religion without redemption. Right? And I did a video on that. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But if you look at who benefits from this, right? So we've disrupted the nuclear family. We've put women into the workplace. We've outsourced provision from the father onto the state. So economically, any country, by the way, if you look at the data, any country that educates women does significantly better economically speaking, right? You remove them from depending on a man for provisional reasons and you empower them to have their own things under the guise that this is what makes them whole and they can't trust men. They can't trust, they're stifling themselves in their potential by being a mother, by living at home, by being a housewife. These are terrible things that women should never do, quote unquote. And so you convince them that this is the path. But if you convince them that this is the path, you have to ask why. It's not only just the country and the economy and the state dependence that one creates security around our government and the roles that they play and the dependence of the people, which means you can start to take away things from people that gets them to vote the way that you want them to vote, right? Do the things you want them to do, because if not, there are consequences to not, because the people, women specifically, have become much more dependent on the state for their well-being, right? So you have control over a population, and then you expand that out into a global agenda, right? It just builds and builds and builds and builds. So if you ask why these things are happening, why would we ever want to convince people of this? Again, follow the money. Who's benefiting? It's not us. It's not our families. It's not our homes. It's not even like in the modern day, the economy. Women and men are out here making money and everybody's struggling. You can't tell me that this was the best move we could have made for everybody's well-being and sake, right? We're not wealthier. I mean, statistically around poverty lines, we are in a capitalist country. This is why capitalism is a good thing, even though it has its shortcomings, of course. But it's not for happiness and the overall well-being of individual people. It is not. If you look at women who are highly successful, and I say this from my own experience, I had everything I ever wanted before the age of 30, and I was not whole, not happy. And it's because it was never going to fill what I found meaning in. It was never going to give me connection or relationship, vulnerability, depth. As far as the split, it's propaganda, it's narratives, it's stories, it's convincing people of things, it's getting people dependent on the state. Then the fear of what might happen if they don't act in accordance to what law is saying or what people in power are convincing them of. Then you get into these subcategories of labeling people in certain ways without actually knowing them or having a conversation. Or you just assume these things and then you hate people you don't even know based on what? Their beliefs. It creates a lot of fracturing within the society, which means you can start to take out pockets of people, right, by controlling them or convincing them of certain things. And then guess what? The government wipes their hands because they're not involved. They might have made a statement, but they didn't actually tell anybody to do anything. They didn't actually tell you to hate men. They didn't actually tell you that all men are worthless. They didn't actually tell you that men are trash. It just happened somewhere along the way that somebody with a platform and or power could make that statement and people would listen, right? So no harm, no foul for them. And they actually don't ever deal with the fallout, but you do. And so I think it's much more sinister than people realize.
Yeah, anything to that. Very well. As a person who considers himself red-pilled and fairly adapted to being on my own, what is the mental harm I risk by staying single?
Do you want to speak on this as somebody who almost went down that path?
We can convince ourselves of many things, especially if we've been hurt before. We can overcorrect and build a fortress of protection, convinced that now we will never be subject to that harm again. The problem with that is you are alone. And speaking from experience, the things that I thought were going to bring me safety and protection and fulfillment and validation are just like pouring water through a pasta strainer. I'm not saying don't pursue and don't conquer and don't accomplish. But by and large, if I got to the top of a mountain and I was alone, it meant nothing. If I had nobody to share that with, it meant nothing. Humans are meant to connect, are meant to love. Our baseline state as an infant is pure unconditional love. And then the world convinces us that we need to be or do or, say things that will make us enough. And so I would just question the notion of, being single. I think I think the whole thing's a ruse. I think the notion of being single and childless after 40, 50 being the way is just a bunch of people trying to gaslight themselves into, because they didn't have the skill that largely everyone is missing. Not everyone, but the majority of people are missing the skill of relationship. And when you don't have the skill of relationship, then you can convince yourself that it's the reason that you're single is because the rest of the world is problematic and that you shouldn't risk being hurt again because it's better to just stay here and safe inside your castle. And that's a great way to never find the depth of love that you're capable of finding in this world. It's all just wounded parts of you trying to keep you safe. I don't align with that at all. And so while this may feel safe right now, being on your own, you self-disclose that you're red-pilled, which would suggest that you think that all women are the problem. And I think that is a problem in itself.
Or you see them as disposable, a means to an end, an object you put on yourself, nothing of substance or virtue. right? And so, like, fair enough. But what you have to risk, I would say, is an overwhelming sense of purpose, right? Because everything you do right now on your own and your single time is so important. Hey, I was single for almost a decade, okay? And I did a lot of personal development, and it was necessary for me to be where I am now. So it is a necessary point of your life, absolutely. At the same time, that time spent alone is for you to develop yourself, not from a lens of, I'm not going to give anybody. I'm going to make my life around pursuing the things that I want for me, selfishly, self-seeking, hedonistic, narcissistic to a certain extent. Right? If you want your entire life to be filled with, adventure of self-infatuation, then sure. I hope that brings you the fruit in which you think it's going to, but it's not. There's no greater, I don't even know the word I'm looking for. There is no greater sense of purpose than dying to your own selfish, self-seeking needs for the betterment of somebody else. There's no better feeling. There's no better transformation. There is nothing more illuminating as far as purpose than taking yourself to the altar and sacrificing all of the things that you wrapped your world around being you focused and moving into a we focused lens of reality. There's nothing better. And of course you can say ignorance is bliss, and fair enough. I had no idea, to be fair. I thought I was fine on my own for a long period of time until, again, I got everything I thought I wanted and realized I wasn't. I could have kept going that direction, could have convinced myself that my career, my businesses, like that would be enough purpose for me. And sure, it probably could have, but it does not compare at all to having somebody that every single decision I make impacts. The level of responsibility that comes with that, but also the level of fulfillment that comes with that. It's an interesting paradox of great sacrifice and great reward. But, you also can't ever get there with somebody if you keep them at arm's length because you think they are disposable, right? Men don't want to be seen as disposable. Don't make women feel that way, right? Both of you are unique and complementary if, again, you are integrated and well-rounded as a person, embodying both levels of the masculine and the feminine to their own degrees. But I think you risk finding yourself if you continue down that path, because you'll continue to embody who it is you think you need to be in the life that you're supposed to live in order to be the man who can never get hurt, instead of actually living out who you at your core is.
You can go fast alone, you go far together.
If you like this, let us know. And we're going to stop here because there's a lot of questions. And if you have questions you want us to answer, let us know in the comments. Give us your feedback. I hope you like this. And if not, then respectfully, fuck off.